This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Today on CityCast Houston, everyone is still talking about President Joe Biden dropping out of his re-election bid for the White House. But what does it mean for the city of Houston? Plus, we reflect on the legacy of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And you won't believe why the Hardy Toll Road was closed over the weekend. Houston Chronicle columnist Joyce Sowing and Houston Public Media executive producer Jim Kovacik join me to talk about those stories and more. It's Tuesday, July 23rd. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Well, it's going to be a rough week because it is raining a lot starting today until about Thursday. Jim, Joy, welcome in. Maybe you can, bring some positivity and lighten up the mood a little bit because this weather has a lot of Houstonians down. Joy, how are you?
Well, anytime you hear rain post-barrel, you get a little anxiety, but hopefully it won't be too bad this week. So I'm thinking it's going to be a positive week.
Yeah, I hope so. Remember after Hurricane Harvey, anytime a storm rolled in, we were all on edge. Jim, I know you remember being a longtime Houstonian. How are you, by the way?
Doing good. Hurricane Harvey, this is how much my mom loves me. We had a billboard for the box of the Mad Hatter Morning Show. It was on TV. They're showing flooding. She's like, hey, you're on TV right now. I'm like, there's other priorities going on right now. But yeah, so I mean, I think like Joy, I've been through all the storms and this one's over. We made it through. Woo!
Yeah, I know. And hey, look, moms are always going to be proud of us, right?
Yes.
No matter what the circumstances are. And that's such a cool story. By the way, Jimbo, for those of you who remember the Mad Hatter Morning Show and your time on 97.9 The Box, that is the Jimbo. So that was the first thing I told you off air. I was like, hey, I know a lot of people don't like hearing this. I don't sometimes either when somebody younger comes up to me and says, hey, I grew up listening to you, but I did grow up listening to you. So that's pretty cool.
I do love that, especially if they mention like specific, like something that I don't remember. When you said this, I'm like, oh, wait, I did,
Yeah.
It's a weird thing because you do like these parody songs and stuff, and you might just say one thing and that like inspired somebody that just was off the cuff. So thank you. I will take that as a badge of honor.
Awesome. Take it as a compliment for sure. All right, let's get to some of our big stories we need to know about this week. And I think the first one, Joy, is the passing of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. She passed away at the age of 74 on Friday night. And I want to take this time to reflect on her legacy, and your column in the Houston Chronicle was so beautiful. So I'm just going to open it up and get to you first. What will you remember about Congresswoman?
When we found out about Sheila Jackson Lee passing, I think most people were shocked. We didn't realize how sick she was. And we know that pancreatic cancer is a silent killer and it can take you out pretty quickly. But in thinking about her 30 years as a politician in Congress, you have to know that she fought for her community. She fought for this district, and everyone who lives here in this district knows that if they had a problem and they contacted Sheila Jackson Lee's office, they got a call back. Somebody was there trying to help them. And I heard that from many neighbors in the last couple of years. During the pandemic, when we struggled to find masks, Sheila Jackson Lee was one of the ones who helped us. And she's that kind of person. She had this bigger than life personality, that booming voice. She had been described in nasty ways, like as being mean and such. And I do believe there was a level that she had to be that way to get some of the things done she did. If she went in there nice and quiet, I don't think she would have been successful and would have lasted this long. So I think when we think about Sheila Jackson Lee, we think about a legend. And I don't know if there's anyone out there who can fill that void and be that voice for the community.
In the nearly 30 years where she was representing District 18, the one thing that you just talked about and that I was thinking about as well was when you think about going to elected officials to get help. A lot of them will just kind of ignore you and they might not respond. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee was about responding and was there at every single community event. If she could make it, somebody from her staff. I don't know how she had that strength to do it because that sounds so exhausting, but she was always there. And everyone has a story about her being there as well, Joy.
Yeah, and sometimes it was a little joke that she's going to show up at your funeral.
Yes.
But I will say that for the everyday person who didn't have, celebrities or any such showing up at their funerals or their events, Sheila Jackson Lee was there. And she was always lending a voice and being supportive in whatever way she could. And how she did what she did, I do not know. She tired me out just watching her schedule.
Absolutely.
And she seemed to be a woman of her word. When she said she was going to help, she helped. During Harvey, there was so much that she did that a lot of people didn't even know she did. She made a lot of moves and things happen even when she wasn't talking about it. And that to me is a mark of somebody who is a true community servant, who is not in it for just all about me. And Sheila Jackson Lee proved that time and time again.
Jim, how will you remember Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee?
Well, we kind of started at the same time. I started the box early 90s and she started, her career then too. So every major thing that we did a lot of community stuff, AIDS walk, we did HIV ticket, the giveaway we did one time. She showed up at our concert. Everything we did, Family Fun Day, she was there. And it was amazing that she was there too. If it was on a Sunday, Monday, whenever, she would show up and be there. And that was one of those things. And she would always call, always be a big, great guest to the show. If there was ever any problems, especially like you guys said, during the hurricanes and stuff like that, she was always there. When Joy jokes about the funeral thing, when she showed up at Michael Jackson's funeral, I was watching it and I was like hearing, off the side, there's a congresswoman from Texas here who wants to, I'm like, wait a minute, it can't be. And sure enough, she was on stage with Michael Jackson's funeral.
Wow.
There was even a parody, I think either Houston Press did or somebody did at the time, where they took major events in history and they superimposed her in each one because she was, that was the kind of like the thing. She was always at everything, but a super nice lady. But I think Joy's right. A leader has to lead and you have to be stern to get what you want. And I know that, some people it might be polarizing, but she was always nice to me. And I think she definitely will be missed here in Houston.
And can I just say one more thing? She, if she had been a man, I don't know how much she would have faced criticism for the way she operated. I think there was much more criticism of her because she's a woman. And I just feel like she had to be in that role. She had to be that kind of person. She had to be stern and forceful. I didn't work for her, so I don't know to that extent, but I have had conversations with her. And I would have to tell a story. She was my neighbor growing up, and I had to sell fruitcake for a band. This was before the good chocolate was around.
Yeah.
And so she bought 3 of them. And I rang her doorbell and she bought 3. And I was in probably the 6th grade. So that was my first meeting of Sheila Jackson Lee.
That is so cool. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee was instrumental in establishing Juneteenth as a federal holiday. She was also a key figure in the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. She'll be remembered for her constant work in the community and just love for the city and her constituents. She will be missed. And a lot of people were asking on social media as well about what happens next, right? Because now she was up for re-election to represent the 18th congressional district. So Harris County Democrats will have to nominate someone to fill her slot on the ballot. If they can't decide on a candidate, then it will go to a state executive committee to figure out who that potential nominee will be. And in the meantime as well, her vacant seat representing the 18th congressional district will be directed for the time being by the office of the clerk. Currently, Kevin McCumber is serving as acting clerk, and Sheila Jackson Lee's staff will continue to work under the clerk's direction. All right, if that wasn't big enough news to start the week, then I've got one more for you, and it's President Biden announcing that he will not be running for re-election as the president of the United States. And as soon as the news broke on Sunday, local politicians were heading to X, aka Twitter, to talk about what President Biden meant to them. State Rep Jean Wu said on X, "God bless Joe Biden, savior of the republic, a man who willingly gave up power to protect the nation." Judge Hidalgo said, "Thank you, President Biden, First Lady Jill Biden, and the Biden-Harris administration for your accomplishments. Thank you for your unwavering support for Harris County and the almost 5 million residents who call Harris County home." Commissioner Rodney Ellis on X said that he is proud to endorse Vice President Harris to be the next president of the United States, just like President Biden did in his announcement. Now, it wasn't all roses and flowers because Governor Greg Abbott went to X and said it looks more and more like the very early debate was a setup to force Biden to step aside. Today's announcement may not have happened without that disastrous debate. So y'all's thoughts on this big news that is shaking up November's election? Jim?
Well, it seemed like it was a matter of time after the debate. Was the debate kind of early for a reason? Who knows on that? We can only speculate. I think he's probably making the right move. But my thoughts is if they make a commitment to Vice President Harris, if I was a political advisor, which I'm not, I'm an amateur, I would say that he probably should resign now, let her be the incumbent, let her pick the vice president and go into that instead of possibly have an open convention and, all the chaos that could happen there, because now they got to do some sort of virtual meetup where they're trying to get votes promised to Harris. But if you get to the actual meeting, does that still happen? But, I don't think that would happen just because a little bit of legacy is involved here. And Joe doesn't want to be perceived as a quitter.
Yeah, and one thing to note, what does this mean for Harris County and for the city of Houston? Now, some political analysts say that Biden dropping out could mean a big bump for Democrats in Texas. Brandon Rottinghouse, a political science professor at the University of Houston, told the Houston Chronicle, quote, "Generally speaking, President Biden is poison for Texas Democrats. They need someone who can take Biden's place and help boost the ticket rather than drag it down," Joy.
Oh, wow. Again, I am no political expert, so I don't know if I can even speak to that. But what I will speak to is that I was on a call with an organization called Win with Black Women, and it was set up a few hours after Biden announced his endorsement of Vice President Kamala Harris. And there were 40,000 women across the country on this call. 40,000. And they all were trying to mobilize and gain support in going to next steps of how they could support Kamala Harris in this bid for the presidency. And they also raised over $1 million in that in 3-hour phone call. So what I've seen just as a Black woman in this space is there's a renewed sense of energy and enthusiasm for the possibility of having the first Black woman president who was also Asian American. And I think there is a sense of urgency. There's 100 and some odd days before the actual election. So there's a lot of things that have to take place, a lot of things that have to get in motion. And I don't know how that impacts Harris County. I haven't thought that far.
Yeah.
But we were on this call until after midnight, and it was pretty incredible to see that 40,000, imagine, on a Sunday night call come together like that. It was pretty amazing.
With Harris County being so blue, I think it's going to strengthen it. And, especially with maybe some independents had a little doubt in Biden. I think this energizes, at least in Harris County. Now, my last job was in Lubbock, and I had to drive 8 hours through the state. So I know there's deep Trump country that's not going to change. But Harris County, I think, will be more energized by this because now Trump is the old candidate. So, you have young, fresh in there. So, I think it's going to make a lot more people go to the polls because it's not the same old two guys anymore.
And one last thing, will this re-energize Democrats to go out and vote in November? Because there is still an important race going on right now for senator, and Colin Allred versus Ted Cruz. There was a feeling amongst people that I know, like, I don't even want to vote in this election because I don't want to vote for President Biden or former President Trump. So maybe this does re-energize some Democrats or some people who are still undecided right now to head to the polls. And we'll find out. It's still very early. There's still a lot to be done, but it's something we will be watching for sure.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. The best way to learn a language is immersion, living where the language is spoken and using it every day. That's how I learned French as a kid. But if that's not in the cards for you this year, you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. I live in a city with a huge immigrant population. You probably do too. And in my hometown, a lot of my new neighbors speak Spanish as a first language, and we have lots of great Mexican and Central American and South American restaurants and stores. I wanted to be able to communicate just a little bit better with some of my neighbors. So I started with Babbel, the science-backed language learning app that actually works. And after just a few extremely enjoyable weeks learning Spanish with Babbel, I've already gotten comfortable ordering at a restaurant and eavesdropping on my girlfriend's conversations with her mom. Look, learning a language isn't always easy, but with Babbel, it is fun and it feels useful, basically immediately. That's why Babbel has over 16 million subscriptions sold. Plus, all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special limited-time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
All right, let's get to lightning round. I have a couple of stories for y'all I would love to get y'all's opinions on. First, we've heard about Tony Buzbee's class action lawsuit against Centerpoint, where he's representing over 100 restaurants, but now there's another lawsuit being filed on behalf of Houstonians from Fertitta and Gibbons PLLC. Now, the lawsuit cites research that claims to show Centerpoint failed to prepare its system for a storm like Hurricane Beryl. The lawsuit is seeking $100 million in damages for Houston residents. Y'all's thoughts on this? Because Centerpoint looks like they are going to be in a lot of trouble here in the upcoming months.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are upset. I mean, the only thing is, I wonder if they have a precedent like with some other storms where people were out longer. I know that as a kid, Hurricane Alicia, we were out for 2 weeks and nobody made any kind of big deal about it because they expected the storm to be so bad. So I wonder if they have a fail-safe here. Is like, it's a storm, it's a natural occurrence. We tried our best. Maybe that's why the 100 million's there to get people to move it down a lot lower. But, you know, I think they might have some sort of precedent here where that cannot go forward.
You know, I have mixed feelings about it. One, I read about Tony Buzbee's case, and I do know that there are a lot of mom and pop shops, restaurants owned by people of color who are not included in that list. And I am concerned about those. As far as the latest suit against Centerpoint, I think Centerpoint, yes, has responsibility in this, but I think there is a bigger picture. You have city management, there's an emergency management department. And they are also involved with, making sure that the city is okay and there's a plan in place. I have questions about that. I have questions about where was the state in all of this? Because, my colleague, Chris Tomlinson, who is a columnist, also has written about how some of these politicians are tied to Centerpoint and donations and things like that. So I think Centerpoint seems like an easy scapegoat, but I think it's a bigger picture that we are not including all of the players that are involved that failed this city and failed these people and left more than 20 people dead as a result of Hurricane Beryl.
And it's something that I hope we figure out very soon because we're still early into the hurricane season. So we still have a couple more months of this. And hopefully there are no more major storms hitting our area because that was a disaster so far. And I want to talk about the cleanup efforts, by the way, because we're still, reeling from the derecho that was here in May, but what about this cleanup from Hurricane Beryl? There was a lot more damage, and Houston City Council member Tiffany Thomas estimates that it could take 6 to 8 weeks. The city did approve a contract with 4 disaster debris removal companies that could cost up to $120 million. And those companies were already here helping clean up with the derecho. So they're just going to stick around a little bit longer. So we'll see what happens with that. But a lot of people are asking, like, how long is it going to take? And you drive around the city, it's still there. The debris is still there. It looks like it's going to be a while, Joy.
Yes, I think all that debris is going to be there for a while. And we have to settle in and know that that's going to happen. I don't see it moving anytime soon. I don't know what to do about it. We could complain, but right now I think a lot of people are dealing with the damage in their own homes and what's going to happen with insurance companies. I am pretty sure that there will be more insurance companies pulling out of Harris County or Texas as a result of this. And that's another issue that we have to face.
Yeah, that's something you've talked about in a previous column as well. I've talked about it on the show just as I was trying to get home insurance renewals done earlier in the year, and just learning about, they are pulling out of other states as well. And this is going to be a problem that our area will face, but that's a conversation for another day. Jim, your thoughts?
I live in Kingwood, and it was a complete mess. And I remember the garbage schedule that week said, put your garbage out, put all your leaves on the side of the road. We'll get them on Thursday. And, all the branches and leaves are still sitting there as I walk the dog every morning I pass. So obviously they're going to need time to clean up everything. But I think that such a wind event that trees everywhere. I know it took about a week and a half just to get one side of the road cleared. Hopefully they'll pick up the branches soon, but I'm patient with it. I mean, it's a citywide disaster. So.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of stories, a lot of heavy stories. So I want to end on a lighter note, and I want to do an only in H-Town story where something so funny, so ridiculous happens that it can only happen here in our beloved city. And look, I get it. We're always trying to shake this stereotype that we don't ride horses around the city and we're not just some cowboys, but it's really hard to shake that image when there was a video circulating of a cow just running around on the Hardy Toll Road this weekend.
Oh,
Did y'all
wow.
see this?
No.
It was incredible.
Did not see it.
Yeah, so what happened was there was a cow on the loose and several wranglers were seen on Houston TransStar cameras. That's the traffic cameras you always see on the news, trying to lasso the cows. But it took several attempts. And also, there were some close calls with cars hitting this cow that was just lost. It was so scary to watch those close calls. But fortunately, they were able to wrangle up the cow, and the cow was lassoed in the grassy median, and traffic was finally reopened a little close to 11 p.m. that night. It was wild to watch. And look, this just kind of hurts our image, right? Like, there's just cows on the loose on big roads.
Please don't go viral. Please don't go viral.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's kind of fun. I kind of like it. It's like when I go to Sunnyside and I see people riding horses down, or something. It's like, I like that contrast.
I do too. It is cool to see that. And you're just like, yeah, we're still in the South. We're still in Houston. Yes, there are just cows running around sometimes. Before we go, what's the wildest thing that you've seen on a Houston freeway where you're like, wait, what's happening here?
I'm going to tell you one. It was during Beryl. I was with my kids and my dogs driving around just to stay cool because it was, our electricity was out. And we were coming down Highway 288 toward downtown. And there's a man walking in the middle of the highway.
Oh my God.
And I have never seen this happen. And I'm coming up on him. I'm driving about 70 miles an hour and I'm coming up on him. And I'm thinking, am I imagining something? No, it was a man in the middle of the street.
Oh my gosh. How about you, Jim?
So many mattresses. I don't know what gets lost in the mattress transfer. I mean, they see just like mattresses on the road all the time. I don't know who's not tying these things down, but I've seen in my time driving, 30 years in Houston, I've seen multiple mattresses. Crazy.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I've seen a guy on a little rascal scooter one time and I pulled over. I was like, hey, you shouldn't be on the West Park Tollway. Like, can we help you? And he goes, no. And he just kept going about his business. I was like, all right, my bad. My fault. It was nuts. Joy, Jim, thank you so much for joining us to help us start the week off and recap some of the big news and also what to look forward to this week. I appreciate y'all taking time out and hope to have y'all back on soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Houston Chronicle columnist Joy Sowing and Houston Public Media executive producer Jim Kovacik. I've linked all of the stories in our show notes. Now, did you enjoy this episode? I know you did. And the best way to help us out is by sharing it with your friends and family. Seriously, you can text it to them, post it on social media, just share it with them. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter, Hey Houston, with the info in our show notes. That will do it for today. Thank you for listening. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and I hope you learned something new.
One thing we did a parody of Sheila Jackson Lee to Lil Wayne's Mrs. Officer, because it did that. And we did Sheila Jackson Lee. And we in the lyrics, we kind of joke that, that she was everywhere. And we even made reference to her crown braid, her famous hairstyle. And she loved it. She said, "Give me a copy now. I want to play it in my stuff." So great sense of humor.